can't do anything unless this is happening. Yeah. Let's try this again. We were waxing poetic about what's happening with Bury a Disc, and take it away, Mike.
I think I was just saying we've got summer camp season coming up.
Yep.
It's a time when we have hundreds of kids coming to our camps from ages 8 to 18, and we hire a bunch of camp counselors for the summer, and it's just a lot of action and a lot of fun.
They're beautiful.
So, yeah.
I know my kid came up through the ranks, and it's a good time. And it's always nice to hang out with some of the older folks reminiscing about when we used to play. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So before we get into Bury a Disc, tell me, I'm kind of curious, how'd you get your nickname Prof? I'm sure most of you know Prof.
So yeah, Prof is an on-field nickname. Most people who have played with me in the Bay Area know me as Prof. And it comes back from UC San Diego. I went to school there, and everybody who goes to UCSD gets a nickname. And
cool.
My nickname was after the professor from this basketball show on ESPN called the And One Mixtapes.
He was sweet. He was my favorite too. Nice.
He was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So,
but what did you do to earn that name?
I submitted a photo of me with a pickup basketball team, and the demographics fit the professor. So
very nice.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you had a variety of throws, much like he would break down a play, or maybe you were breaking down a play. Okay, good. I was curious about that. So good, mystery solved. So how did you get started playing this? So you started in San Diego? Mm-hmm. Because I was when we talked the other day, it was interesting how you were just playing in the courtyard, and someone came around and invited you.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So I mean, my very first time actually playing Ultimate was in high school, my senior year. There was, kind of a ragtag group of kids who wanted to play a little bit of Frisbee. We didn't even really know what Ultimate was. And, we played like 2 games and maybe scored 1 point against Berkeley High and like the other good team in the Bay Area. So now there's a real team at my high school, Bishop O'Dowd, which is really cool to see. I'm loving that. But anyways, then when I went to college, I didn't really have any real Ultimate skills. I had a half a forehand, so I went out to the quad and played a little bit of Ultimate Frisbee, and one of the guys out there recruited me for the team, and it's been all uphill from there.
Very nice, very cool. By the way, I think my friend Hank Sawandi's coaching the Bishop O'Dowd team.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're just cool. Anyway, that's shout out to Hank.
Yeah.
So so you joined the team. You said it was how many? You had like A, B, C, D. I mean, how long was that? Because it was a very well-established Ultimate culture there.
Yeah, it was called the Squid Army by
Nice.
some. We were the UC San Diego Air Squids.
Nice.
And there were a lot of teams. It was kind of like a farm system, A, B, C, kind of going in level of skill, but also commitment. You could play on the team, and B, you could have your team if you basically just wanted to play once every couple of weeks and then go to the tournaments. Like there was a student team for that. So it was great to have such a wholesome community, I guess. Not wholesome, but whole.
Right, yeah. Sure. So you started in the ranks on the B team.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, how deep did it go? Because I just want to say it was a very deep organization.
Yeah, I remember an E team and maybe an F team.
Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. Wow,
yeah.
That's a very robust system. So great. Okay, so you started on B team, and then you played there, and then your journey started. And take me through, you were definitely globe hopping in pursuit of Ultimate. I know you were in education, but you were definitely pursuing Ultimate as well.
Yeah. So I spent my first 2 years of university at UCSD. And then I knew I wanted to study abroad, and in looking where to study abroad, I did some research of where there are some good Ultimate Frisbee teams out there, and I did.
That's a baller. I like that.
Back in the early days of Google, I was doing my internet searching and got in touch with some people in a few different places,
Nice.
and I landed on Barcelona as the place that I really wanted to go. It seemed like a really fun place and great place to study and live for a year. So,
and that was beach.
Yeah, it was mostly on beach.
Mostly beach.
Yeah. So every weekend I was out on the beach playing Ultimate for, usually Saturday and Sunday for, 4 or 5 hours a day.
Nice.
So it was great practice getting out there and learning to play this different style of Ultimate on the beach. A lot more finesse, a little bit less like brute force and athleticism. And there were some great mentors out there that taught me a lot of things I wouldn't have learned in college playing with other college kids.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get back to that on what you learned in that one. But but let's. So you were there for how long? For
A year.
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year, and then you came back where? UCSD.
Yeah, I came back to UCSD.
And now you were in the A team.
Yep.
And you were better.
Yep.
And you were a leader with all your new skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Very nice.
Yeah, it was cool coming back and going back into the scene that I had been in for 2 years before, but coming back as I think a totally different player. So
A Zen master, maybe.
not quite.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that was a great senior year. Had a really good time on the field with my teammates at UCSD, and then after that, I took a year off and then went to grad school. And then in grad school, I went to another great ultimate Frisbee city, Bologna, Italy, and I was there for a year. Played on the team there called Cus Bologna.
Nice.
And that was an intense year of ultimate. It's a very intense team. A lot of they ride on emotion and brute force. Kind of the opposite of Barcelona.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It was very interesting to you were able to compare and contrast those two and see those. So yeah, tell me about that experience beyond. Were you said you traveled around Italy? You were playing other teams, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we traveled around Italy. I mean, more travels around Europe actually than Italy. Going to Belgium and Switzerland and France and Germany, all around playing in these international tournaments. And Bologna. I mean, we had a good team. We were finishing at the top. We won some of the top European tournaments. Nice. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's an understatement. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so you were there for 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you came back to Washington?
Yeah, DC.
Okay, DC.
Yeah.
And so where did you find yourself in that community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was doing my second year of grad school in Washington, and while I was there, I was doing my master's in international relations, but also playing a bit of ultimate on the side on a team called Eastern Motors.
Nice.
And super fun group of guys. It's kind of it's merged now into a team called Medicine Men, which is based out of Baltimore and DC.
Now, is that a masters or open?
It's open.
And who does Medicine Men have to go through to reach? Because I haven't heard of them. That doesn't mean are they vying for the top on the?
Yeah, I mean their perennial kind of older brother is Truck Stop.
Nice.
They always have to go through Truck Stop, and there are a couple of other really high level teams in the region.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so now you leave that area, and when you came back to San Diego, you went to.
I came back to the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in the Bay Area for the next 3 years or so. Played on Wolf for 1 year.
Okay.
Which was it was an open team, and lots of really, really talented players. A lot of these guys went on to play with Blackbird, Revolver. Some of the big Revolver stars were on Wolf.
Very nice.
Back in the day, but we could never quite put it together and get those big wins against the big powerhouse teams. So after that year, I went to American Barbecue.
No, hold on here.
Yeah.
So what was the year? What you describe it? We won the game to the game that would have gotten us to. How did you describe that? Was that part of that experience?
Yeah.
I was just fine. I like that phrase. How did you phrase that?
We were in the game to go.
Yes, I love
that.
Those.
Was a success.
Exactly. The game, exactly. So I just wanted to say that was pretty funny. Yeah. So anyway, please, I interrupted you.
That's all right. So then I played on American Barbecue for 2 seasons after that.
Okay, good. That was Damien's team and Nick Auger's team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And now it's in the hands of Malika and Noel and great crew of people. I loved my time playing with them.
Right on.
We went to nationals 1 year. They went a year after I left too, but we went to nationals, and the first time that we made it was a hell of a thrill.
Yeah,
so much fun. Yeah.
I remember when you came back, just a few people, that was sort of my introduction, having played with people that have sort of touched that area. And it was very nice to say, wow, I'm playing with people who are really nice caliber, high level. It was very cool. So good. So American Barbecue. So what happened? So an opportunity came up.
Mm-hmm. I was playing with American Barbecue and working in international development. And I'd always kind of wanted to do a stint abroad doing international development work in a developing country, probably in Africa or Latin America. And I got this job that was kind of a dream job, doing a drinking water disinfection project with a really well-known nonprofit called Innovations for Poverty Action.
Nice.
So to get that job, I was like really stoked. I went out and moved to Kenya, lived there for about a year and a half, and it was an amazing experience to be, I don't know, embedded in this completely different cultural experience.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I read your article in Sky Magazine, and
cool.
Nicely done, nicely written, but it definitely, it complemented our conversation we had this week about just about your experience in Africa, but really just understood where ultimate Frisbee could be so powerful. So yes, please illuminate that experience. I'm very eager to share that experience with others.
Definitely. While I was there was a little bit of an ultimate Frisbee scene there. It was a small pickup crew, and when I got there, some of the players, they wanted more. They wanted to develop their skills. They wanted more coaching, and they kind of looked to me to develop that. And when I started running these practices, and they were super enthusiastic, really eager to learn, and it was great to have this really high energy crew wanting to learn ultimate.
So step back just a second. Before you were describing when you got there, there was no field. It just sort of just wandered. They didn't have any. You came with cones. So what was the conditions like, or the setting like, how they were playing before you got there?
There were general end zone areas. I don't. The rules were really loose.
I played games like those. Yes.
Yeah, it was a novelty to bring cleats or make any calls or do any of that stuff.
Sure.
So, I didn't want to impose my style of ultimate on their game. But so we kind of created this parallel practice where players had the option of coming and developing their skills, and then when they went back into the pickup game, then they were all of a sudden becoming the best players when they had been the total novices before. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
So things started coming together. I mean, you started having a vision to win the big tournament in Africa. Was it Kenya or was it Africa?
Yeah, I mean, it was in Kenya,
okay,
but it's kind of like the East African.
They were hosting it, but it was East Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at what point of this, taking this sort of fledgling team, that you started to have aspirations higher than just winning the pickup game?
I think it was our first trip to Uganda. I got I got the core group together, and we just took a couple of vans out to Uganda on public transport, and they're called matatus. We just took matatus, these public transportation little vans with no maintenance, no leg room. You're riding with chickens and goats and stuff. And
sounds like Guatemala. Sounds like South America too. So yeah, it's okay.
So we drove out there and we played for an entire day against the Uganda team. And Uganda's always been the powerhouse of East Africa. They've had a really highly developed ultimate scene and really good leaders there who have cultivated that scene really well. So we went there and we got our butts kicked, but we had some highlights where I the light flickered in my head and I was like, whoa, these guys have potential.
I like those moments, isn't it? Yes, that flicker.
Yeah, it's not just we can play pickup among each other. These guys and girls can go out and compete with the best of the best if they keep developing their skills and keep their dedication.
Such a fun story.
Yeah,
very good. So awesome.
Yeah. So then from there we continued practicing, and about 4 months after that, I think we went to the Feast tournament, which is Frisbee East Africa Sand Tournament.
Nice.
And it's on the Indian Ocean coast of Kenya. So long journey for my players coming from Western Kenya, but we made it out there. I invited a few of my friends from Europe to come play with us, and we had an awesome time. We lost a game during pool play, and we kind of had to take the back door into the finals. And then we were playing against Uganda in the finals, and they had won, I think, the previous 3 editions of this tournament. So they were kind of seen as unbeatable, untouchable. I don't think they had lost a game in 3 years. So, we played a really hard-fought game and took them down.
That's nice.
It was an unbelievable victory, and I've never seen this crew of players so happy before.
That's a terrific story. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're sharing that.
Yeah.
So now this continues to do well. I mean, you've left leaders in charge that they're able to continue to perpetuate all the good that you've established.
Yeah. So after that, I was like, all right, what's going to be the next step in cultivating these leaders and cultivating this ultimate scene? And right around that time, it was announced that Worlds was going to be in Dubai. And my thought was, Worlds is never going to be closer to Kenya than it is now in Dubai. So I looked at flights. I was able to find some really cheap flights. And I just said, like, we can make this happen. And I started talking to some of the other players, started talking to some of my contacts back in the US about, potential fundraising ideas. And over the course of the next year, just did a lot of fundraising, a lot of organizing and planning, and ended up making the trip happen for, I think, 9 or 10 Kenyans.
Right.
And we sent a team there and had some great victories and had an unbelievable experience. So the key to all this is that it's not just a cool experience for the Kenyan players that got to come. Like, it's an eye-opening experience that really changes them in the way that they look at the sport. Now they see that there's a huge international community, and they can go back to Kenya, and they're more motivated than ever to be the leaders. And people really look up to them now as the leaders in that ultimate community.
So just to sort of dovetail a little bit of talking about the community, how was Frisbee viewed? Because soccer is the dominant sport there. So was this an outcast sport where people sort of laughed at? I mean, what was the initial thing, and what was it after when they came back and started showing that they were winning?
Yeah, I would say it's not really well respected on first glance. Most soccer players who are playing next to us on the pitch, they'll kind of look over and not laugh out loud, but they'll just kind of look down on us or whatever. But I kind of succeeded sometimes, through a little bit of heckling and getting some of them to come over and play with us. And then, the first point that they play, they have respect for the game then.
Sure.
And I mean, almost all of the players in Kenya are former soccer players, because almost everybody in Kenya is a former soccer player.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a great story. I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, pull up stakes, and you're heading back to the U.S.
Yep.
So what happens?
Yeah, so
2013.
Came 2015.
2015.
Yeah, came back in early 2015.
Okay.
And I was kind of trying to figure out what to do with my career, whether I should continue in international development in the Bay Area. There's not as much opportunity, in the Bay Area for that kind of career as there is in other places like DC. So sure. I was figuring out what to do, and the president of the board, Adam Farron.
Hi, Adam, if you're looking.
What's up, Adam? He approached me, and we had a series of conversations and then interviews, and then vetting by the board in order to get me into the executive director position for
cool.
Bay Area Disc. So
very nice.
Yeah, I landed there in July of 2015.
It was 2015. I got my dates wrong.
Almost 2 years now.
Hi, John. Thanks for checking us out. You've done this traveling of the globe, playing Ultimate, and you champion Spirit of the Game, all these things. So this must have been like a dream come true if you love Ultimate, because now you are spearheading a major, or guiding or shepherding a major organization, championing a cool sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is kind of a dream come true for me. It's definitely not what I was. I didn't foresee this job coming along, but it's a great experience and very good translation from what I was doing before. So the impact is really fun for me to see. It's something that's firsthand had a really great impact on my life. With a lot of my friends are Ultimate Frisbee players. So much of the openings in my life and right and left turns have all been with Ultimate. Ultimate's been there, and the community's been there with me. So I see Ultimate as being an amazing good presence in my life and in my community's, my friends' life. So for my job to be to like spread the sport,
Right.
and to create community and create opportunities to play, like that's pretty awesome. It doesn't get better than that.
So I like that, and I want to touch on that a little later. One of the things I want to say is, hi Jen for joining us. You had a stint with Dogfish. How was it? You became a pro. How was that experience in light of all the other things that you've experienced in the ultimate Frisbee?
Yeah. The pro ultimate thing was cool. I mean, it was like the first time that I'd ever played in front of audiences like that, the first time I've ever played on camera and been able to look at myself afterwards. And, you know, the level was obviously really high. So I had a great time with it. I think in the end, it didn't, like, it was a big commitment, and I didn't quite get enough out of it to really justify that commitment the next year. So it was a 1-year gig, but I had a great time with it.
That was nice. So what, for anybody who's aspiring to be pro, what would that jump be? Where does their head need to be to make that jump?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm thinking of like, for me to make that
Sure.
jump, I was going from like, you know, pickup in, you know, or games in Kisumu, Kenya, to then playing like pro ultimate like 2 months later. So for me, that jump was like pretty difficult to ramp up that quickly.
But it was a testament to your skill to go from that and have the skill level to make the team. Just to say, that you're still a pretty good damn player if you're in that setting to be able to make the team. But for somebody looking just in general,
yeah.
What was the takeaway? Do you think that where does the headspace need to be?
I think you need to be pretty fearless, and like nobody's out. You know, you can make the team if you go into tryouts and you kick butt in tryouts. Like, there were a few guys that were kind of written off before tryouts even started, and then they just went in there and showed what they had, and they were a totally different player during that season and during those tryouts than what anybody had seen before. So, you know, don't write anybody off by history.
So what do you mean? So was it the tryouts that sort of bolstered their ego, bolstered their confidence? Or you know, change people's perceptions of somebody who they thought little of or less of?
I think it might have been mostly that they had put a lot of work in the off season into getting better.
Right.
So they were just at a different level than what people had seen before.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. So we're going to pivot to Barrier Disc. So looking on the horizon with the different things, where do you see Barrier Disc going? What are some of the main missions that you want to move forward, initiatives that you want to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, on a very broad level, the thing that we're working on is you know, getting our vision very clearly stated. And I mean, what we're looking at now is really like, what would the world look like? What would the Bay Area look like if 25% of all adults played this, and 50% of all kids were exposed to Ultimate Frisbee in their schools? Sure. You know, stuff like that. Thinking really big, and then building backwards from there and saying, what do we need to do to get from where we are now to that vision? Right. And we've got a great position in the community with our staff and our board. Sure. Like, we've got a great foundation to really like push forward and make things happen in the next few years. So. That's cool. So
that's the 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
Where are some of the structural things that you're doing, the major pillars that move that vision forward?
Definitely. So one of the really cool things that we're doing a lot this year, and I think we're going to continue to do it next school year, is after school programs.
Nice.
So we're partnering with individual schools as well as school districts to get more Ultimate Frisbee in these after-school programs.
Fantastic.
And not only for, you know, kids in middle school and high school, we're really focusing on elementary schools. Right. So we're going younger than
grow the base
it's ever been before in the Bay Area, at least. You know,
very much so.
A few years ago, it was just starting in middle school, and you know, there have been some great pioneers in the Bay Area to get the middle school scene to be really strong. Like Maddie Sang has been coaching at Willard for many years, doing a great job.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and the age level just keeps getting younger and younger where we're introducing kids to Ultimate. So I think that's really cool, and we're expanding that in a big way.
By the way, it's so cool when you see a young kid with a flick.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, this is awesome. You want a little tear rolls off, and I want to applaud. So it's a testament to BADA Disc.
Yeah.
So
and our youth staff. I mean, I do a little bit of coaching, but like really the bulk of this is the coaches who are actually doing it, and our youth staff, Val Yanni and Jen Pashley.
Jen Pashley and Val. Yes, hi Jen. Absolutely.
Great job.
Yes, I've crossed paths with Jen a few weekends. She's out there in the trenches doing great work. Absolutely. And I will get your medical bag back on Saturday. So, but yes, absolutely. So you're growing the base, and what's other things you're doing besides growing the base?
So growing the base, and then so when kids go from elementary school to middle school, they play in leagues that we run. So we have this we have winter leagues during from like December to January. We have them in the South Bay, we have them in the East Bay. So any middle school team can come and compete against other middle schools every weekend for like 10 weeks.
Right.
And so then the season progresses into the spring, and then we have our big tournaments. Our big tournaments are King of Bongo on the beach, and we've got middle school state championships coming up in just a couple weekends, I think, probably 3 weekends from now.
I'll be there.
And then we've got Spaghetti Western coming up in mid-May too. So
those are great tournaments, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean,
thanks.
and I was talking to Val. Are you pulling teams out of state or out of Southern California? I mean, has it grown to that part, to that point?
For Spaghetti Western,
Yeah.
definitely.
great.
Teams are coming in from Oregon, I think Washington.
That's awesome.
And Southern California, I believe.
That's
So
great.
yeah, it's definitely becoming more of a traveling sport
Yeah.
than in even just a couple of years ago.
That's terrific. Yes,
Yeah.
that's great to be able to see high-level ultimate that's traveling to come to the Bay Area. That's awesome.
Yeah. So our middle school championship coming up has almost 20 teams registered. So to think that there are 20 middle schools out there with teams, that's pretty amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then
That's so cool.
yeah, high schools. We also run high school winter leagues. We have 3 big high school tournaments throughout the year. So providing opportunities to play for kids at all ages, and the mission of the organization is to provide as many high-quality playing opportunities as possible, always while embodying spirit of the game.
Spirit of the game,
So
absolutely.
That's exactly what we strive to do.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And you have so you have that, and you're trying right now. You mentioned in our conversation that the Bay Area right now, correct me if I quote you wrong, is sort of a coach's desert. I mean, you want more coaches, and there's not a lot available. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, relative to a place like Seattle, it's not as full of coaches as I think it should be or could be. I think that a lot of the players who are in their 20s and 30s are not very aware of what's going on in the youth scene, and the connections between adult players and the youth scene are not as strong as they should be. So that's something that I personally want to do a lot more of, is really make those bonds and get more adults coaching, because I mean the entire youth scene depends on coaches.
Sure.
It's not going to happen without them.
Very much so. So what are some of the ideas? What are the things you're trying to sort of percolate this sort of desert of coaches? Excuse me if I'm using the wrong term or a drastic term, but you want more coaches. How are you trying to get the word out?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we're doing right now is with our youth programs in elementary schools. We've got paid coaches going out and doing that. We're not. I think what we used to do is say, except for summer camps, which were paid, we would generally say, hey, we need a volunteer coach here, we need a volunteer coach there. Now it's no, you want a coach? You're on our staff now. You're getting paid.
Wow.
You're getting a Bay Area Disc T-shirt and a hat, and so making people feel like they're really, they have a role and they're valued, and it's an important thing that they're doing. So I think that as a concept is important. Paying coaches and making them feel valued so that they return.
Now, and I was reading an article, the article you wrote about your experience in Kenya and the power of spirit of the game, and it happens to be something that's championing the sport growth here in the Bay Area. how are you how are you using that element to grow the sport in the schools? Are you getting someone's ear to say, hey, there's so many powerful elements of this sport that you really need to take a closer look at this sport?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely part of our selling point when we're trying to market the sport to schools, principals, and PE coaches. Spirit of the game with kids is more than just like, a fun concept. It's really a part of social emotional development.
Exactly.
And when kids are learning spirit of the game, it's, they're learning emotional control. They're learning how to communicate under pressure. They're learning how to resolve conflicts fairly. They're learning leadership, empathy, all of these like amazing skills that you can learn from a lot of different places. But you put kids in Ultimate Frisbee, they're having a blast playing a sport, and they're learning how to self-officiate a game, and they're learning all of these values that come along with that. So
what was interesting is that as long as I played the sport, spirit of the game seemed to be logical. It was just a basic, we don't have refs and you make your decision, off you go. But there's larger implications, especially when you start talking about social emotional learning. When reading I'm going to quote somebody from your article, was Dr. Watumbe?
Watumbe.
Watumbe.
Hey, Doc.
As a self-officiated game, Ultimate encourages dialogue, collective leadership, transparency, accountability to both the teammates and the opponents, a calm sense of diplomacy. It crosses borders and cultures with ease, also bringing people together instead of dividing them. And which is interesting is when you elevate it up from just a couple people throwing a piece of plastic around and you apply it to someplace that's been war-torn, and it doesn't take much to spark a disagreement, may bubble into a fight depending on what happened, how the political winds blow. It's really powerful when they see something like this. That I guess you had people from rivaling tribes that were playing with each other, and you really saw the spirit of the game being much larger than simply as I was looking at it. I'm sort of getting it, and that article was like, wow, this is heavy. This is really deep.
Yeah, I mean, in Kenya, there's pretty much a constant underlying tension that goes back to history of civil war and election conflicts that come about when leaders from different tribes might come up and be leaders that will favor that tribe. And been a lot of conflicts over the last few decades, some really serious and some that have really damaged the political and social landscape there. So to have a game where everybody can come together and they're officiating themselves and talking about these things and resolving these conflicts, it is definitely powerful. So
what I want to know, and I'm going to be a lay person on this one. Hi, Riley. How you doing? Thanks for joining. How you brought Ultimate Frisbee there. At what point did you understand the larger ramifications of spirit of the game? Who shared that with you? Because I think it would have been an aha moment going, hey, this is what you do. You resolve it on the field. But it would have taken me a while to have the aha moment going, wow, this is actually bigger deal than just two people talking it out. So did you have that aha moment, or was it evident immediately?
No, it was really not that evident immediately to me. I mean, I don't think that I, quite noticed it until one of the guys took me aside and, talked about how valuable it was for him to have it in that way. And that's when I was like, whoa,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I never even thought about that before.
Exactly.
So yeah, my aha moment was like a direct communication from one of the players.
No, it was very cool. Yeah. It was a very powerful article. With that, when you talk about it, it crosses borders. That doesn't even come up in the conversation spirit of the game. It has the power to bring people together, yes, but crossing borders and cultures is in that particular situation was very riveting and compelling to hear that. So it was very cool. Right on. So what's happening now? You're playing. So you're doing Barrier Disc stuff. What do you see in the future? What's something that you want to say, sort of your signature thing? What's the sexy thing you'd love to see, if it even exists?
I think that there are a couple of answers to that. Like one is that I want to see way more kids playing Ultimate.
That'd be great.
And not only just like in the schools where our networks naturally reach, but in schools where we're the least likely to reach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like getting out into a lot more inner city schools, places where we don't have like parents who are Ultimate fans. We got to go in there and really work for it. Ultimate Frisbee is a game that is incredibly accessible. At the base level, all you need is a disc and some open space.
The barrier to entry is very low, exactly.
I mean, there's no barrier to entry.
Right.
And the disc lasts a long time. Yep. You can get a game going. You can get a culture of Ultimate Frisbee going in any place that you want to. So, I think that would be an incredible legacy for me to have. I'd be really proud of that if we could get a lot more programs going in places where Ultimate Frisbee is currently underrepresented. So
I like that. Yeah. That's amazing. We were talking about that going. I would love to see that. I would love to see more teams. And even the ability, when you give these kids the ability to understand how to play the game and they're confident to go to pick up games around the area, they're able to walk in and play and experience something even outside of their microcosm of the school. It's very welcoming. Yeah. And I would love to see that. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome.
For sure.
Yes.
And I think that the other, and then kind of thinking on the other side is like, I would love for Bay Area Disc to be, continue to become a national leader. In the same way that a lot of people look up to Disc Northwest as kind of like that beacon of like, an organization that's been really leading the way for other regional Ultimate organizations. I think I want Bay Area Disc to be in a similar spot where we're doing a lot of innovative things, where people can learn from us and use what we've done to create a better Ultimate community where they are.
That's great. And Disc Northwest is very established, very broad, very wide. So it's nice to be able to mirror off of them. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So what would be some of those things? I mean, we talked a few. Are there any other ones that you would think would create Bay Area Disc to be a beacon of light for the nation?
I think that expanding the base of adult Ultimate players too is really important. We might have some of the highest rates of like per capita Ultimate players here in the Bay Area, but it's still got to be below 5%, probably around like 2%. What if in 5 years we've got 25%? But can we grow the amount of Ultimate players by 10 times? Sure. And what would it take to get there?
I think you're going to find that. I know you fundraise that if you look to expand the middle some way with different leagues, you're going to get probably even more fundraising dollars, because they're going to these people are going to go, oh wow, I didn't know, or maybe I need to get my kid in there, or whatever. That might be interesting, but that would be fantastic to see.
Definitely.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, most of the funding that we get in order to expand our programs comes from our programs themselves. We do have a decent amount of fundraising that goes on, but in order for like real fast growth to happen, we need some big fundraising. So it's something that we're working on. We don't put a lot of resources into it because we're not like a heavy fundraising organization, but it is something that we always do think about and we're looking for.
Nice. I like that very much so. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 1-minute break, and we're going to come back. But before we go, because we're going to come back what I'm going to call with the up call. We're going to do like 5 key questions, and if you would like to ask any questions, I welcome you. If not, I'm going to roll some questions by my guest here. But how do you want to put a bow on this about Bay Area Disc? What you want to see, what you want to do, if you have an appeal you want to make.
Mm-hmm. I think if anybody wants to get involved, you can get in touch directly with me, Mike at bayareadisc.org, whether it's as a volunteer organizing events, as a coach, or as a donor.
Coaches, please.
Whatever,
Donors.
However you're positioned to help, whatever you do for work, like I guarantee you there's a way that you can help with Bay Area Disc and the ultimate scene here. So just get in touch.
That's fantastic. And what I want to say, but we will be coming back shortly, is my man's in the trenches. He's out playing pickup. He's on a high-level team with Classy. So he's all over the place, really moving the levers and moving Bay Area Disc forward. So I just want to say I love seeing you out there.
Thanks.
You're definitely with the people. I like that. So we're going to come back in about 1 minute. Thanks for joining us. Hope you guys stick around.
All right.